I was reborn just in time to catch my sister seducing my fiancé. Their clothes were disheveled. Quite a stimulating sight. My sister coyly burrowed into his arms, speaking in a coquettish voice. Sister, it is all my fault. Please just let us be together. In my past life, I tearfully gave them my blessing, lowered myself to become a concubine, only to be poisoned by them and thrown into a mass grave to be fed to dogs. This time, I directly slammed the marriage contract in their faces, turned around and knocked on the Crown Prince's manor door, only to be pulled into a pair of strong arms, bone-piercing pain. I desperately tried to open my eyes, but there was only darkness before me. The air was filled with damp, fishy stench. I could feel myself being dragged by something. My body scraped against the ground, gravel tearing through my skin, blood slowly draining away. Rest in peace. Song Yunyan's voice came from above, soft and delicate, exactly like when she used to act cute as a child. The young master said your corpse will feed the dogs, clean and efficient. No one will ever find out. I wanted to scream, but only whimpering sounds came from my throat. I wanted to struggle, but my limbs had long been broken. I glared at her furiously. At this moment, with her smiling face like a blooming flower, she looked like a demon. And my fiancé, Feng Jinyan, the young master of the Duke Protector's manor. They conspired to drug me, then threw me into a mass grave to let dogs tear me apart alive. At the last moment before my consciousness faded, I heard her say, Sister, once you are dead, I'll be the rightful heir's wife of the Duke Protector's manor. I truly hated them, and hated myself. Just as my consciousness was about to fade away, I suddenly woke up again. It wasn't that kind of groggy awakening, but like my whole body was pulled out of water. I sat up abruptly, my chest heaving violently, cold sweat on my back soaking through my undergarments. Sunlight streamed in through the window lattice, stinging my eyes. I touched my face, then touched my neck. At that moment, the door was pushed open, and a young maid ran in carrying a copper basin. Miss, you are awake. Today is your betrothal day. You must dress up nicely. Betrothal. I looked at Shah Isla's familiar face, unable to speak for a moment. In my past life, she was sold off by Song Yunyan under some pretext and later beaten to death by human traffickers. Shah Isla felt uneasy under my stare. Miss, what is wrong? Did you have a nightmare? I didn't answer, but looked around the room. When I saw the pomegranate tree outside the window, I couldn't help but freeze. That was planted by Mother herself back then. Later, Song Yunyan said it blocked her light and insisted on having it cut down. I hurriedly got down from the bed, ran barefoot to the vanity, and grabbed the bronze mirror. The face in the mirror was young and full, with a trace of childishness between the brows that hadn't yet faded. I was reborn in the year when Song Yunyan and Feng Jinyan got engaged. Actually, the one who should have been engaged was me. It was Song Yunyan's mother who used underhanded methods to steal my marriage arrangement. On this day in my past life, I was still foolishly waiting for Feng Jinyan to come with the betrothal gifts. But I waited until the sun set in the west, only to see them appear before me together, Song Yunyan holding his arm, smiling like a flower. Sister, the young master said the one he likes is me. Sister won't blame me, will you? What did I say back then? I said, how could I? I am happy for you, little sister, that you found your ideal husband, thinking about it now. I was so stupidly naive back then. I slowly stood up and walked to the window, looking at the pomegranate tree in the courtyard. The sunlight shone on me, but my hands and feet were still ice cold. Shah Isla, this servant is here. Where is that dear little sister of mine? Shah Isla froze for a moment, then said cautiously, the second young miss is in the side room. Just now this servant saw the young master arrive and go to the second young miss's side. Feng Jinyan came and went straight to Song Yunyan's side room. Right, it was the same in my past life. They had been having an affair all along. Only keeping it from me. Let's go. I turned and walked out. Miss, where are you going? You haven't done your hair yet. You haven't changed clothes. To catch them in the act. Shah Isla stumbled and nearly fell. Song Yunyan's room was in the side courtyard, separated by a moon gate. I didn't have anyone announce me, just walked straight in. The courtyard was dead quiet, not even a maid around. I walked to the main room entrance and heard sounds coming from inside. "Young master, go easy." Song Yunin's voice came through, soft and seductive, like it was soaked in honey. "What, feeling shy now? When you climbed into my bed that night, didn't see you being shy. Young master just loves to tease." Rustling sounds came from inside, mixed with suggestive noises. Shiarisla's face flushed red, head down, not daring to look. I stood at the doorway, quietly listening to them screwing around in my room, saying those filthy sweet nothings. In my past life, I also stood right here. Back then I was trembling all over, tears streaming down uncontrollably, wanting to push the door open but not daring to, standing here like an idiot listening to the whole thing. Later I pretended I didn't know anything, silently swallowing that humiliation. And what happened? They fed me to the dogs. This time I didn't tremble, just pushed the door open and walked in, went around the screen and saw those two pale bodies tangled together on the bed. Song Yunin saw me first. She screamed and yanked the blanket over herself. Only then did Feng Jianyan turn around. The moment he saw me, a flash of panic crossed his eyes, but it was quickly replaced by impatience. He frowned and said, "Why are you here? Don't you know how to knock?" In my past life, when I heard this, I almost knelt down to apologize to him. In this life, I couldn't help but laugh. I crossed my arms and leaned against the screen, speaking leisurely. "The young lord is on my bed, asking me what I am doing here." Feng Jinyan's expression stiffened. Song Yunin hid under the blanket, showing half her face, tears welling up in her eyes as she said, "Sister, don't blame the young lord. It is all my fault. It is me." I was confused for a moment. "I am sorry, sister." As soon as she finished speaking, tears fell from her eyes. In my past life, I was fooled by this act of hers. If sister is angry, just hit me or scold me. It is all my fault. It has nothing to do with the young lord. Feng Jinyan felt sorry for her. I pulled out a piece of paper from my sleeve. It was the marriage contract from when we got engaged. Since the young lord likes my younger sister, then as her older sister, I should naturally help you too. Here is the marriage contract. Once I tear it up, the young lord can marry my younger sister fair and square. Feng Jinyan's expression changed. A flash of joy quickly crossed Song Yunyan's eyes, but she soon put on that pitiful look again. "Sister, don't do this. I don't want to make things difficult for you. Not difficult at all." I lowered my head and methodically tore the marriage contract in half, then into quarters, then into pieces, and tossed them into the air. The paper scraps fluttered down like falling snow. Feng Jinyan's face turned ashen. "Song Qingyan, have you lost your mind? This marriage contract is between the Duke Zhengguo's manor and the Song family. You tore it up. Aren't you afraid your father will beat you to death?" Me, someone who had already died in a previous life, afraid of that. I smiled. "Don't worry, young master, the marriage contract is gone. But the Duke Zhengguo's manor will still marry into the Song family. It is just that the bride will be someone else." Song Yunin bit her lip, looking at me with teary eyes. "Sister," I raised my hand to cut her off. "Don't call me sister. When you climbed into my fiancé's bed, how come you didn't remember I was your sister?" Her face went pale. Feng Jinyan opened his mouth to say something, but I had already turned and walked out. At the doorway, I looked back at them. "You two, take your time." With that, I pushed the door open and left, shutting all those messy sounds behind me. Sharisla trotted after me, her face still flushed but her eyes sparkling. "Miss, you were amazing just now." "You didn't see second Miss's expression." I stopped in my tracks. Sharisla nearly bumped into me and quickly stopped. "Miss Sharisla, where is the Crown Prince right now?" Sharisla froze. The Crown Prince." "Yeah," she stammered. This servant doesn't know either. I heard His Highness the Crown Prince has been staying at the Eastern Palace lately, barely going out." "Miss, why are you asking about this?" I didn't answer, just raised my head and looked at the sky above. March 8th. In my past life on this day, I swallowed my anger and humiliation, then step by step walked toward the mass grave. This life is different. Crown Prince Feng Haoshuan, rumored to be cruel, brutal, and unapproachable. He is the current emperor's legitimate eldest son. But because his mother, the Empress, died young and his maternal family is weak, he has been suppressed by the noble consort's faction to the point where he can't raise his head. The Emperor doesn't favor him, the court officials fear him, and noble ladies turn pale at the mention of his name. No one dares to marry him. But I remember when he was little he wasn't like this. When he was little he would smile while getting bird nests for me, would stand in front of me when I was bullied, would secretly slip candy into my hand. Later his mother, the Empress, died, and he changed too. Became cold, became ruthless, became someone people didn't dare approach. But I remember his eyes. In my past life before I died, the last thing I saw was those eyes. By then I'd already been mauled beyond recognition by dogs, my consciousness fading. And in a daze it seemed like someone rushed over, tearing those dogs apart like a madman, lifting me from the pool of blood. I couldn't see that person's face clearly, only saw a pair of eyes, bloodshot, crazed eyes. The pain in those eyes was even deeper than the pain of the dogs gnawing on my body. Then I completely lost consciousness. Thinking back now, that wasn't a hallucination. That was Feng Haoshuan. He somehow got word and rushed to save me, but unfortunately came too late. I was already dead. In this life I won't let him arrive too late. Let's go. I lifted my foot and headed out. Where to? Shah Isla caught up, the Crown Prince's manor. The gatekeeper at the Crown Prince's manor had never seen such a scene in his life. A young lady without attendants, without presenting a calling card, just standing there straight-backed at the manor gates, saying she wanted an audience with His Highness the Crown Prince. The gatekeeper sized me up and saw that while my clothing wasn't shabby, it wasn't made of any particularly precious material either. Figuring I was from some minor household trying to climb the social ladder, he said with a smile that didn't reach his eyes, "Miss, His Highness the Crown Prince does not receive outside guests. Go announce me. Say that the eldest daughter of the Song family requests an audience." The gatekeeper thought for a moment. Which Song family? The Song family of the current Grand Tutor. The gatekeeper froze. Although Grand Tutor Song wasn't some powerful figure who held sway over the court, he was still one of the three excellencies, a proper court official. His legitimate eldest daughter wasn't too shabby. The gatekeeper's attitude improved slightly, but he still shook his head. "Miss, it is not that this humble one won't announce you, but His Highness has given orders not to receive guests, especially female guests. That Crown Prince Feng Haoshuan kept his distance from women was something everyone in the capital city knew. Rumor had it that once a young lady from an aristocratic family tried to flirt with him, and he didn't even lift an eyelid. He had her dragged out and given 20 lashes on the spot. Some people say he has a hidden illness, which is why he stays away from women. Others say he is waiting for someone, which is why he refuses to settle. I don't know which one it is, but I know he will definitely see me." I pull out a jade pendant from my sleeve and hand it over. The jade pendant is of ordinary quality with crude carving. Clearly not worth much at first glance. "Show this to His Highness, and he'll see me." The gatekeeper takes it and looks it over, his face full of doubt. What use could this shabby thing have? But he still goes inside. Shah Isla is so nervous, her palms are sweating, and she whispers, "Miss, coming here like this, what if the Crown Prince won't see you? What if His Highness gets angry? What if there are no what-ifs?" I say with certainty, because that jade pendant is one I gave him when I was little. That year I was 7, and he was 9. My mother was still alive, and his mother Empress was still alive too. We met in the Imperial Garden. He was being bullied by the Imperial Consort's son, and had a gash on his forehead, blood streaming down his face. All the other kids stayed far away, but I ran over and used my handkerchief to wipe the blood for him. He asked me what my name was. I said my name is Song Qingyan, and my father is Grand Tutor Song. He said he'd remember. After that, we often met in secret. He'd bring me pastries from the palace, and I'd bring him sugar cakes my mother made. He said he'd marry me when he grew up, and I said, "Okay, that jade pendant. I saved up my monthly allowance for a long time to buy it. It is not valuable, but it is my heartfelt gift. From now on, bring this to find me, and I'll know it is you." He took it and looked at it for a long time. Later, after his mother passed away, he became a different person and refused to see me anymore. I had someone deliver a message to him, but he didn't reply. He only returned the jade pendant to me. I went to block him at the palace gate, but he had someone tell me he wouldn't see me. I thought he had forgotten me. In my previous life, right before I died, I learned he hadn't forgotten. He had always remembered. The gatekeeper came out quickly. He ran out, his face showing obvious shock. Miss His Highness requests that you come in. Chiarisla's eyes widened. I smiled and stepped over the threshold. The Crown Prince's residence was huge and empty. I didn't see many servants along the way, and the occasional one or two who passed by kept their heads down and hurried past, not daring to look. I was brought to the study door, the gatekeeper withdrew, and Chiarisla was also stopped outside. I took a deep breath and pushed open the door. The light in the study was somewhat dim. Only half a window was open, and sunlight slanted in, falling on a rosewood desk. Summer Gnome was sitting behind the desk. He was looking down at something. I could only see his profile deep features, a straight nose bridge, and a jawline so sharp it looked carved by a blade. I walked over and sat down across from him. Your Highness, I've come to discuss a deal with you. His brow moved slightly. What deal? I marry you, and you help me get revenge. He stared at me, his eyes becoming somewhat dangerous. Do you know what you are saying? I know. Do you know who I am? I know. Do you know that all the young ladies from noble families in the entire capital city dare not marry me? Just because your Highness is cruel and tyrannical, unapproachable, has a hidden illness, brings misfortune to wives, nothing good about you at all. He fell silent for a moment. Then you still dare to come? I looked into his eyes and said word by word, because your Highness is the only one who would rush over like a madman to save me when I was dying. Pay attention to this detail. The protagonist uses rebirth memories as the core bargaining chip, directly breaking through everyone's cognitive barriers. Crown Prince Feng Haoshuan is synonymous with cruel and tyrannical in others' eyes. But the protagonist knows his true nature, someone who has wanted to marry her since childhood and would go crazy when she died. This information gap is her greatest weapon. Her sister Song Union thinks she stole her sister's fiancé and wealthy family life. But what she actually stole is a ticking time bomb. Feng Jianyan, the heir of the Duke Protector's mansion, someone who would conspire to kill her, and the protagonist with one sentence, I'll marry you, you help me get revenge, directly tied herself and Crown Prince together on the same boat. This isn't a plea for help. This is forming an alliance. When you possess knowledge of the future that others don't know, you control the initiative in the entire game. His pupils suddenly contracted. That jade pendant was clenched in his hand, his well-defined fingers turning slightly pale. Your Highness. I've lived again. I didn't plan to hide it from him. In my last life, I died too miserably. In this life, I am living too clearly. I want revenge, I need allies, and he is the only person I can trust. In my last life, I was killed by someone, died miserably. When I woke up, I found myself back at 17. This morning, my fiancé and my sister were sleeping together. I tore up the marriage contract, then came to find you. He looked at me, said nothing. I know this sounds absurd, but it is the truth. If your Highness doesn't believe me, you can have someone investigate. What happened at the Song residence this morning can't be hidden. He was silent for a long time, so long I thought he'd have someone throw me out. Then he spoke. How did you die? I froze. His voice was soft, but every word seemed dipped in ice. You said you were killed in your last life. How did you die? I opened my mouth, couldn't get the words out for a moment. What could he do, even if he knew? Things from my last life haven't happened yet. In this one, what could he do? I looked into his eyes and saw a suppressed dark fire burning inside. Song Union and Feng Jianyan, they drugged me, threw me at the mass grave, let the dogs. I couldn't go on. Those memories hurt too much. Hurt so much that every time I recall them, my bones ache faintly. He didn't ask anymore, but the hand gripping the jade pendant. His knuckles had already turned pale white. I took a deep breath, pushing down all those messy emotions. So, Your Highness, are you willing to make this deal? He didn't answer my question, but asked instead, why me? Because Your Highness is the only person I can trust. Just because I went to save you in the last life. Just because Your Highness went to save me in the last life. He looked at me, his eyes complex. Haven't you ever thought about why I went to save you? I froze. I'd never thought about this question. In the last life, he and I had long since cut off contact, hadn't seen each other or spoken for over 10 years. Why would he rush over when I was dying? Because I owe you, he said. Owe me? I was about to ask when he already stood up. He walked around the desk, step by step, coming before me, looking down at me from above. This distance was too close. Close enough that I could smell the faint scent of pine on him, could see clearly those undercurrents in his eyes that had been suppressed for too long. His voice was low. "I'll ask you one last time. Have you thought it through?" I looked up at him. "Once you've thought it through, there is no going back. I am not like certain people. Once I marry, I won't change." My heartbeat skipped, but I knew I had no way out. "I've thought it through." He stared at me for a long time, then smiled. That was the first time in this life I'd seen him smile. 3 days from now, I'll go to the Song residence to propose marriage. I calculated 3 days from now was exactly the day Feng Jinyan and Song Yunyan were getting engaged. "Does your highness know what day that was?" "I know." He looked down at me, a hint of amusement in his eyes. I smiled too. "Your highness chose a wonderful day." A trace of amusement flashed in his eyes. Then he raised his hand and pushed the jade pendant back into my hand. "This, you keep it for now." I looked up at him, puzzled. "Wait until our wedding night, then you can hand it to me personally. If you give it now, I am afraid I won't be able to wait 3 more days." My face flushed red. This man, he really is. I clutched that jade pendant, my heart beating wildly. But he had already turned around, calling out loudly, "Simone, escort Miss Song back." The door was pushed open, and a guard-like person came in. I stood up, walked to the door, and couldn't help but look back once more. He had already sat back behind his desk, head lowered, looking at something, as if nothing had just happened, but I saw the tips of his ears were red. I curved my lips and followed the guard out. 03 marriage proposal 3 days later. The Song residence was decorated with lanterns and festive colours, not because the Crown Prince was coming to propose, but because the Duke Protector's residence was coming to present betrothal gifts. That grand tutor Song of mine was so happy. Early in the morning, he had people clean the entire residence and specially place the finest tea set in the main hall. Song Yunyan wore newly made clothes, with newly crafted hairpins in her hair, sitting beside her mother, smiling with such smugness. I sat on the other side, quietly drinking tea. Sherisla stood behind me, so nervous that her palms were sweating. "Miss, will the Crown Prince really come?" "It is already this late." "He will come," I said with certainty. When Feng Jinyan entered with the betrothal gift, Song Yunyan's eyes were practically glued to him. Grand Tutor Song smiled from ear to ear. "Young master, you are too kind. Please sit, please sit." Song Yunyan's mother quickly had someone serve tea, and while serving tea, she kept glancing at me with eyes full of smugness. "Niana," she said with full sincerity, "today is your sister's big day. Don't just sit there, go to the kitchen and help out." She was trying to get rid of me in my past life. I foolishly went. In this life, I stayed seated. "Madam is right." I put down my teacup and said unhurriedly, however, on my sister's joyous day, as her older sister, I must watch with my own eyes to feel at ease. Song Yunyan's mother's face stiffened. Song Yunyan bit her lip and forced out a smile. "Sister, the way you are talking, it is as if I would steal what belongs to you." "Didn't you steal it?" My words were too direct. Everyone in the room froze. Feng Jinyan's face darkened. Song Yunyan's tears immediately fell. "Sister, how can you say that?" I didn't." Grand Tutor Song slammed the table and stood up. "Qing Nian, how dare you speak to your sister like that?" I looked up at him. This Grand Tutor Song, in my past life, personally sent me to my doom to curry favor with the Duke of Zhengguo's manor. I haven't even settled the score with him in this life yet. "Father, did I say something wrong? The young lord and my sister's good fortune. Can't I? The legitimate fiancé. Even take a look." You Grand Tutor Song hadn't finished scolding when suddenly a commotion came from outside the door. "The Crown Prince has arrived." Everyone in the room froze. Feng Jinyan's expression changed. Song Yunyan's tears were still on her face. No time to wipe them. Grand Tutor Song's legs went weak, shouting repeatedly, Quickly go welcome him." Crown Prince Feng Haoshuan walked in from outside. He wore a dark brocade robe, making that face appear even more stern and cold. The imposing aura around him made people afraid to lift their heads. Song Yunyan's mother, who had been so arrogant just moments ago, was now shrinking in her chair, trembling. But he acted as if he didn't see those people at all, walking straight toward me. "Did you wait long?" he asked me. That tone sounded like we'd known each other for a long time, like he asked me this every day. I curved the corners of my mouth. "Not really," he nodded, then turned to look at Grand Tutor Song. Grand Tutor Song. Grand Tutor Song dropped to his knees with a thud. This subject greets the Crown Prince. Rise, I came today to propose marriage. Propose marriage. Grand Tutor Song was stunned. Feng Jianyan was stunned. Song Yunyan and her mother were also stunned. "Your Highness, this is Grand Tutor Song," asked cautiously. "May I ask which young lady your Highness has taken a liking to?" Feng Haoshuan didn't answer. He turned back to look at me, then reached out his hand and held mine. Grand Tutor Song's legitimate eldest daughter, Song Qingnian. The entire room fell silent. I clearly saw the color drain from Song Yunyan's face bit by bit, becoming even paler than paper. Feng Jinyan looked at me in disbelief, as if he was meeting me for the first time. Grand Tutor Song opened his mouth, unable to speak for a long while. In the end, it was Song Yunyan's mother who reacted first, forcing out a smile that looked worse than crying. "Your Highness must be joking. Sister Nian, she is already betrothed." Feng Haoshuan raised an eyebrow. "What betrothal?" It is with the Duke Zhengguo's manor," Feng Haoshuan nodded, then turned to look at Feng Jinyan, heir apparent. "You tell me, do you have a betrothal with Miss Song?" Feng Jinyan's expression was spectacular. What could he say? The marriage contract had already been torn up by me, and the person he wanted to marry was Song Yunyan. This was something everyone in the capital city knew. If he dared say there was a betrothal, today's betrothal gifts wouldn't be accepted. But if he said there wasn't, he said through gritted teeth, There isn't. I have no betrothal with Miss Song." Feng Haoshuan nodded with satisfaction, then looked at Grand Tutor Song. "Lord Song, are there any problems now?" Grand Tutor Song's legs went so weak he could barely stand, nodding repeatedly. No problem. Then it is settled. In 3 days, I will come to fetch my bride. 3 days. The entire room was shocked again. For the Crown Prince to marry, no matter how urgent, shouldn't he at least go through the 6 rites? 3 days, this wasn't a wedding. This was clearly an abduction. But Feng Haoshuan didn't give them a chance to question it. He held my hand and looked down at me. "Anything else you want to say?" I swept my gaze across the room full of people with varying expressions, finally landing on Song Yunyan's face. Her face was frighteningly pale, her eyes full of unwillingness and resentment. At this moment in my past life, she had looked at me the same way. Except back then, she was the victor and I was the loser. Now it was reversed. I smiled, leaned close to Feng Haoshuan's ear, and said in a voice only he could hear, "Nothing more, let's go home." A hint of amusement flashed in his eyes. Then he pulled my hand and, under the dumbfounded gazes of everyone in the room, strode out. Behind us came Song Yunyan's mother's shrill scream. "What is going on?" On the wedding day, I wore bright red wedding attire and rode in a vermilion sedan to the Crown Prince's residence. He also wore bright red wedding attire, which made his face look even more handsome and distinguished. In his eyes as he looked at me there was light. I held his hand and stepped down from the sedan. A burst of cheers erupted from the crowd. I didn't look at those people, only at the man before me. He held my hand and walked step by step into the Crown Prince's residence. During the wedding ceremony, I heard people whispering. I heard that the eldest daughter of the Song family was originally supposed to marry the heir of the Duke Zhengguo's mansion, but somehow she ended up being married to the Crown Prince. Hey, you don't know yet. That heir had already hooked up with her younger sister. She was forced into a corner with no choice, so she turned to the Crown Prince. Really, that is really TSK-tesque. If you ask me, this is a blessing in disguise. Look at His Highness, the Crown Prince. Where is that cruel and brutal person from the rumors? He clearly dotes on his wife. Exactly. I curved the corners of my mouth. After the ceremony, I was sent to the bridal chamber while Feng Haoshuan entertained the guests outside. I sat alone on the wedding bed listening to the noise outside, yet my heart was strangely calm. When the door was pushed open, I thought it was Xia Isla, but the footsteps were wrong. It wasn't Sia Isla. I abruptly lifted my veil and saw Song Yunyan standing at the door. She was dressed in a maid's outfit, with a smile on her face, but that smile was sinister, like a snake flicking its tongue. She walked in and closed the door behind her. Sister is so fortunate. His Highness the Crown Prince personally came to fetch the bride, causing a sensation throughout the city. What grand spectacle. I looked at her without saying anything. She walked up to me, looking down at me from above. Does sister think that by latching onto the Crown Prince, you can rest easy now? I laughed. Isn't little sister also supposed to get engaged today? How come you have time to visit big sister? Her expression changed. Get engaged, her engagement was called off this morning. Feng Jinyan did come to present the betrothal gifts as originally planned, but when the people from the Duke of Jiangguo's manor saw that the Crown Prince had married me, their expressions immediately changed. A man who had a marriage agreement with the Crown Prince's consort still dares to marry the Crown Prince's wife's younger sister. Does he have a death wish? The Duke of Jiangguo scolded Feng Jinyan bloody on the spot, and the half-delivered betrothal gifts were carried back. Song Yunyan waited all morning, only to get this result. Her mother was so angry she kept stomping her feet, and Grand Tutor Song's face turned green. But what could they do? The person His Highness the Crown Prince wanted to marry was me. What could they dare say? Song Qingyan, don't get too smug. You think the Crown Prince really likes you. He is just opposing the Duke of Jiangguo's manor. Once he is done using you, let's see what you'll do. I slowly stood up, my wedding dress trailing on the ground, red candles flickering. I was half a head taller than her, and looking down at her like this, I had the upper hand in presence. Little sister, did you come specially to congratulate me today? She sneered. I came to tell you, don't be happy too soon. The heir apparent said he won't let this go. I nodded. Then little sister, go back and tell the heir apparent that I won't let this go either. She froze. I pressed forward a step, and she instinctively stepped back. Little sister, when you were seducing my fiancé on my bed, did you ever think this day would come? Her face turned pale. When you conspired with him to drug me, threw me into the mass grave and let the dogs bite me to death, did you ever think this day would come? Her pupils shrank sharply. What are you saying? What I am saying, little sister knows in her heart. I looked at her panicked face, smiling ever so gently. The matters of my past life I'll settle with you slowly in this life. She staggered backward, her back hitting the door. You've gone mad. I haven't gone mad, I've just died once. The door was suddenly pushed open. Song Yunyan nearly fell, staggering as she grabbed the doorframe to barely steady herself. Feng Haoshuan stood at the doorway. He must have heard something from outside, his expression frighteningly dark. Song Yunyan saw him. Her legs went weak. Your Highness. Feng Haoshuan didn't look at her. He looked at me, his gaze carrying concern. I smiled at him, indicating I was fine. Then he lowered his head, looking towards Song Yunyan, that gaze, cold as if tempered with ice. Who let you in? Song Yunyan trembled like a sieve. I came to congratulate sister. Feng Haoshuan sneered. Congratulate? This prince's consort needs your congratulations. Song Yunyan opened her mouth, unable to speak. Summoner, come. 2 guards entered at his call. Throw her out and tell Grand Tutor Song to keep his household in line. If I see anyone trespassing into the Crown Prince's residence again, break their legs and throw them into the mass grave. Song Yunyan's face turned completely pale. The 3 words mass grave were like a knife stabbing into her heart. She was dragged out by the guards, and as she was leaving, she looked back at me. In that gaze, there was unwillingness, resentment, and a trace of deeply hidden fear. The door closed. Only Feng Haoshuan and I remained in the room. Red candles burned, filling the room with festive cheer. Feng Haoshuan walked over and stopped in front of me. Are you all right? I shook my head. He looked down at me, his gaze falling on my face, tracing it inch by inch. What you said just now, it is all true, things from my past life. The candlelight reflected in his eyes, flickering on and off, making it hard to see clearly. Song Qingyan. He called my name. I've been waiting for this day for a very long time. My heart skipped a beat. He took a step forward. I took a step back. My knee hit the edge of the bed. I lost my balance, leaned back, and fell onto the wedding bed. He leaned down, arms propped on either side of me, enveloping my entire body in his shadow. This distance was too close. Close enough that I could see the curve of his eyelashes, could feel the warmth of his breath. His gaze traveled down from my eyes and landed on my lips, scared. His voice was low and husky, carrying a somewhat teasing undertone. I didn't speak, reached out my hand, hooked around his neck and pulled him toward me. "Your Highness," I whispered in his ear. "I've been waiting for this day for a long time too." His body stiffened for a moment, then he laughed. That laughter was low, carrying a hint of wildness and satisfaction. The red candles burned out, the night grew deep. 05 returning home on the third day. This was the custom 3 days after a bride's marriage. She must return to her parents' home to pay respect. But today's homecoming was destined to be anything but peaceful. I sat in the carriage, Feng Haoshuan sitting beside me. He held my hand, his thumb absent-mindedly caressing the back of my hand. "Nervous?" I shook my head. "Not nervous." He glanced at me, the corner of his mouth curving. "Then why are your palms sweating?" I looked down, and sure enough they were. I pulled my hand back and wiped it on my clothes. "It is hot," I said. He didn't call me out, just let out a low chuckle. The carriage stopped at the entrance of the Song residence. As I got off the carriage, I saw a dense crowd of people standing at the entrance. Grand Tutor Song stood at the front, followed by Song Yunyan's mother, then Song Yunyan, and a bunch of relatives I didn't recognize. Everyone's expressions were spectacular, respectful, fearful, awkward, with a trace of faint ingratiation. I've only been married to the Crown Prince for 3 days, but the way they look at me is already completely different from 3 days ago. "This subject pays respects to your Highness, the Crown Prince. Pays respects to your Highness, the Crown Princess." Grand Tutor Song knelt down, followed by a wave of people kneeling behind him. Feng Haoshuan didn't let them rise. He stood there looking down at these people from above, his gaze as cold as if he were looking at a swarm of ants. Song Yunyan knelt in the crowd, not daring to even lift her head. That mother of hers, however, kept her head up, her eyes darting around, scheming who knows what rise. Feng Haoshuan finally spoke, Grand Tutor Song, as if granted amnesty, quickly scrambled up and ushered us inside with bows and scrapes. Tea and refreshments were already laid out in the main hall. Feng Haoshuan sat down in the seat of honor, and I sat beside him. Grand Tutor Song wore a fawning smile, pouring out flattering words one after another. Song Yunyan's mother also sidled up, calling me "Your Highness," with such warmth. "Your Highness is truly blessed to have married someone like His Highness the Crown Prince." She smiled so hard wrinkles appeared on her face. "You must look after your younger sister from now on." I ignored her and looked toward Song Yunyan instead. She stood to the side with her head lowered, acting like a wronged little wife. That Song Yunyan who'd been talking tough in my bridal chamber 3 days ago was nowhere to be seen now, little sister. I called out to her, her whole body stiffened, and she lifted her head. "Elder sister." That day in the bridal chamber, I remember everything my little sister said. Her face changed. Grand Tutor Song and her mother were also stunned. Feng Haoshuan spoke up from the side. "Grand Tutor Song, I came today not only to accompany the Crown Prince Consort on her return visit, but also to handle another matter." Grand Tutor Song quickly asked, "Your Highness, please instruct." I heard that in Grand Tutor Song's residence, there is someone who was once a concubine of the heir of the Duke Zhengguo's manor. As soon as these words came out, the entire room fell silent. Song Yunyan's face turned deathly pale. Her mother was also stunned, mouth agape, unable to speak. Grand Tutor Song was even more bewildered. How is this possible? My daughters are all pure and innocent young ladies. How could they? Is that so? Feng Haoshuan raised an eyebrow. Then why is there word from the Duke Zhengguo's manor that the heir once had an affair with your residence's second young miss? Song Yunyan's legs went weak, and she grabbed the table beside her to steady herself. That is not true. This is slander. Someone is trying to harm my union. Is that so? Feng Haoshuan said unhurriedly. Then shall I have someone invite the heir of Duke Zhengguo over for a confrontation? Would Madame Song be willing? Her mother's voice caught in her throat, unable to utter a single word. Grand Tutor Song's face turned from green to white, looking at Song Yunyan, then at me, and finally at Feng Haoshuan. Your Highness, this. Feng Haoshuan ignored him, and instead looked at me, his voice softening a bit. Are you tired? I shook my head. Song Yunyan stood there, trembling all over. She probably didn't expect that Feng Haoshuan would be so direct. She even less expected that I would actually join hands with the Crown Prince to deal with her. 3 days ago, when she came to my bridal chamber to threaten me, she probably still thought she could easily trample me down like in the last life. But she didn't know this life is different. I've died once. I've got nothing to lose. An announcement came from outside the door. The heir of the Duke Zhengguo's manor has arrived. Song Yunyan's body swayed, nearly falling over. Feng Jinyan walked in from outside, his expression also looking quite unpleasant. The moment he saw Feng Haoshuan, a trace of obvious wariness flashed in his eyes. But he still braced himself and performed a bow. Feng Haoshuan didn't let him rise. He just knelt there like that, head lowered, his expression invisible. The heir has come at just the right time. Feng Haoshuan spoke leisurely. I was just wanting to ask, how do you plan to handle the matter between you and second Miss Song? Feng Jinyan suddenly raised his head. Your Highness, the subject and second Miss Song. What? Feng Haoshuan raised an eyebrow. Is the heir trying to say that you and she have no illicit relationship? Feng Jinyan opened his mouth, unable to speak. Would he dare say there wasn't? Everyone in the entire capital city knew that on the morning of his engagement day, he came out from Song Yunyan's bed. If he dared say there wasn't, then Song Yunyan's reputation would be completely ruined, and her mother would be the first to not let him off. But if he said there was, then he would be having an affair with the Crown Prince's consort's younger sister. With this label pinned on him, where would the Duke of Zhengguo's manor put its face? Song Yunyan watched his reaction, her complexion gradually turning ashen. She could see it. Feng Jinyan was hesitating, weighing the pros and cons. In his heart, she wasn't that important at all. In my past life, I was foolish and couldn't see through these things. But in this life, I see it crystal clear. Young master need not feel troubled. I spoke up. Feng Jinyan raised his head to look at me. I smiled. Young master and my younger sister are in love with each other. This is a good thing. As her older sister, I am happy to see it happen. Feng Jinyan's expression became even more unpleasant, while Song Yunyan's eyes reddened. She probably didn't expect that I would speak up for her at this moment, but they didn't know that I had my reasons for speaking up for her. However, since young master wants to marry my younger sister, you should give an explanation. Will you take her as a concubine, or marry her as your legal wife? Feng Jinyan's face turned iron blue. Legal wife. Hey, the dignified young master of the Duke of Zhengguo's manor, marry a woman who had illicit relations with someone as his legal wife. He couldn't afford to lose that much face. But if he were to take her as a concubine, no matter what, Song Yunyan was still Grand Tutor Song's daughter. Making her a concubine would be slapping the Song family in the face. Grand Tutor Song's expression had already darkened like the bottom of a pot. He never imagined that his daughter's third-day return visit would turn out like this. Feng Haoshuan listened from the side, a hint of amused smile in his eyes. He should have anticipated this would happen all along. Today's events from start to finish were all arranged by him. Feng Jinyan suddenly spoke up. Your Highness, there is something I don't understand. Feng Haoshuan raised his chin slightly, signaling him to speak. Your Highness marrying Miss Song, what exactly is it for? Is it to go against me, or what? Feng Jinyan took a deep breath, raised his head, and looked directly into Feng Haoshuan's eyes. Your Highness, Miss Song and I had a marriage engagement. This is something everyone in the entire capital city knows. Your Highness marrying her, aren't you afraid of being laughed at? Feng Haoshuan laughed. That smile was cold, carrying a hint of disdain. Heir apparent, let me ask you, does your marriage engagement with Miss Song still exist? Feng Jinyan couldn't speak. The engagement is long gone. This is what you admitted yourself. Since there is no engagement, then whoever I marry, what is it to you? Feng Jinyan was blocked from saying a single word. Feng Haoshuan stood up, walked in front of him, and looked down at him from above. Heir apparent, let me give you a piece of advice. Mind your own business. As for my princess consort, he turned his head and glanced at me. I am marrying her because she is the person I've wanted since childhood. It has nothing to do with you, nothing to do with the Duke of Jungwo's manor. The entire room fell silent. I looked at him. My heartbeat skipped a beat. He has wanted to marry me since childhood. He said this openly and honestly without the slightest concealment. Feng Jinyan knelt on the ground, his face completely pale. Song Yunyan stood to the side, trembling all over. Grand Tutor Song and her mother looked at each other, not knowing what to say. I stood up and walked to Feng Haoshuan's side. He held my hand. Let's go, it is time to head back. We walked out of the main hall, past that group of people with various expressions on their faces, past the high threshold of the Song residence. Behind us came the voice of Song Yunyan's mother. What should we do? Then came Grand Tutor Song's rebuke. Shut up. Then something shattered. Feng Haoshuan's hand was very warm, gripping tightly. I said quietly, those words just now, were they true? He looked down at me. What words? The one about wanting it since childhood. He curved the corners of his mouth. Didn't answer, but I saw the tips of his ears turn red again. After the return visit, the days passed peacefully. Feng Haoshuan went to court every morning and came back in the afternoon to keep me company. Sometimes he'd take me to stroll through the gardens. Sometimes he'd teach me calligraphy. Sometimes we'd do nothing at all, just sit under the corridor and bask in the sun. I asked him, "Doesn't your Highness need to handle official business?" He said, "Already handled." I asked again, "Doesn't your Highness need to attend social engagements?" He said, "Not going." I asked once more, "Doesn't your Highness find it tiresome to accompany me every day?" He glanced at me that looked somewhat deep. "Tiresome," he said. I froze. Then he continued, "Because you asked too many questions." Me, this man, really. But I know what he is doing. He is waiting for those people to deliver themselves to our doorstep. Sure enough, half a month later, they made their move. That day Feng Haoshuan went to court, and I stayed alone in the manor. Xia Isla ran in, saying mysteriously, "My lady, someone sent a letter." I took it and saw it was Song Yunyan's handwriting. "Sister, I have an urgent matter to discuss. I hope sister will grant me the favor of meeting for the sake of our sisterhood." I crumpled the letter into a ball and tossed it into the charcoal basin. Xia Isla was stunned. "My lady, you won't see her," I said indifferently. "I will, but not now." 3 days later, a second letter arrived. This time Song Yunyan's tone was softer. "Sister, I know I was wrong. I beg sister to give me a way out." I burned the letter again. When the third letter came, there were tear stains on the paper. "Sister, the heir apparent. He wants to take me as a concubine." "Sister, I don't want to be a concubine. Sister, please save me." Sharisla watched from the side, her eyes turning red. "My lady, the second young Miss She. What about her?" Sharisla opened her mouth but didn't dare to speak. I smiled, folded the letter neatly and put it in my sleeve. "Go ask His Highness to come back. Tell him I have something to discuss with him." When Feng Haoshuan came back, I handed him the letter. After reading it, he raised an eyebrow. "What do you want to do?" I smiled. "I want to see her, but not in private." Feng Haoshuan looked at me, his gaze carrying a hint of understanding. "You want to do it in front of everyone?" I nodded. He thought for a moment and said, 3 days from now is the Imperial Consort's birthday banquet. All the nobles in the capital city will attend. If you meet her there," I smiled, "Your Highness truly understands me." He curved his lips and reached out to ruffle my hair. "Be careful, that woman is not simple, I know. In my past life, I died at her hands. I know just how not simple she is. But this life is different." 3 days later, the Imperial Consort's birthday banquet. This was a grand occasion in the palace. All the noble ladies and madams of the capital city came. I entered the palace with Feng Haoshuan, drawing countless gazes along the way. Some curious, some scrutinizing, some disdainful, and some respectful. Those who once looked down on me now had to bow when they saw me. The Imperial Consort sat at the head seat, her makeup exquisite, her smile proper. When she saw Feng Haoshuan, a flash of coldness crossed her eyes, but it was quickly covered by a smile. "The Crown Prince has arrived. This must be the Crown Princess. She is truly beautiful," I bowed. "Thank you for your praise. Your Highness, the Imperial Consort." The Imperial Consort smiled and waved her hand. gesturing for us to take our seats. Not long after the banquet began, I spotted Song Union. She followed behind her mother, head lowered, looking meek and obedient. But she kept glancing up at me from time to time, her eyes filled with pleading. I ignored her, just leisurely sipping my tea, occasionally exchanging a few words with Feng Haoshuan. Halfway through the banquet, Song Union finally couldn't hold back anymore. She walked up to me and dropped to her knees with a thud. Everyone in the room was shocked. She cried like a pear blossom in the rain, "Please, sister, save me." All eyes turned to us. The imperial concubine raised an eyebrow, watching this scene with great interest. Feng Haoshuan sat beside me, expressionless, but under the table his grip on my hand tightened. I looked down at Song Union, saying nothing. She knelt on the ground, trembling all over as she cried, "Sister, I know I was wrong. I shouldn't have been with the heir. I shouldn't have done those things. But sister, I was really forced into it. It was the heir who he threatened me. I didn't dare refuse." I listened to her fabrications, the corners of my mouth curving slightly. "Little sister, who exactly are you saying this for?" She looked up, eyes blurred with tears. "Sister, are you trying to get me to save you? Or are you trying to make everyone here think that I, as your older sister, am too heartless to even help my own little sister?" Her expression shifted, and the people around us began whispering to each other. This second Miss Song really is something. First she stole her sister's fiancé, and now she is running to beg her sister for help. Exactly, if I were the crown princess, I wouldn't bother with her either. You can't say it like that. After all, they're real sisters. If we can help, we should lend a hand. Song Union listened to these words, a hint of smugness flashing in her eyes. This was exactly the effect she wanted, to put me in an impossible position. If I help her, she can use my influence to suppress Feng Jianian. If I don't help, I am the one who doesn't care about sisterly bonds, and I won't be able to show my face in these circles anymore. She calculated well, but unfortunately she forgot one thing. "Little sister," I spoke up. She looked up at me, her eyes red like a pitiful little rabbit. "What you said, I believe it." She froze, and everyone around also froze. "Elder sister, the young lord threatened you. That was wrong of him. But little sister, do you know why the young lord threatened you specifically?" Song Yunin opened her mouth but couldn't speak. I continued, "That morning, did you go looking for him yourself, or did he come looking for you?" Her expression changed. The people around started discussing again. Right, who was looking for whom exactly? I heard that day the young lord went to the Song residence early in the morning and went straight to the second young lady's chamber. So she was willing herself, and now she is playing pitiful. See that? This is a classic case of using someone's force against them. Song Union knelt publicly at the imperial consort's birthday banquet, trying to use sisterly affection to blackmail the protagonist, forcing her to either help or bear the infamy of not caring about family. But the protagonist didn't respond directly. Instead, she used a simple question. Did you actively seek him out, or did he come to you? To directly reverse public opinion. The lethality of this question lies in: the protagonist doesn't need to say the answer herself. The people around will fill in the blanks on their own. And the more Song Union can't speak, the more it confirms the fact that she actively seduced him. The sister thought she was playing chess, but in reality she didn't even understand the rules of the board. What the protagonist wants isn't to win sympathy, but to let everyone see her true face. Next, you'll see what it means to counter. Kill someone with their own weapon. Song Union knelt on the ground, her face alternating between pale and flushed. She didn't expect me to ask this. She even less expected that I actually knew the details of that morning, sister. She still wanted to say something. I interrupted her. Little sister, you want me to save you. Fine, but first you need to tell me that morning, did you actively seek out the heir, or did the heir actively seek you out? The entire hall fell silent. Everyone's gaze fell on Song Union. She knelt on the ground, trembling all over. She couldn't say it. She was the one who had someone deliver a letter to Feng Jianian. She was the one who actively seduced him. I had someone investigate this clearly long ago. Little sister, since you are unwilling to speak, then forget it. I picked up my teacup and slowly took a sip. But little sister, you must remember, in this world, there are no walls that don't let wind through. Song Union knelt there, her face completely pale, Her mother rushed out from the crowd and pulled her up. Enough, Union. We're leaving. Song Union was dragged outside by her mother, and as she reached the door, she looked back at me. In that gaze there was resentment, unwillingness, and a trace of deeply hidden fear. I smiled and waved at her. She paused for a moment, then ran out even faster. The people around were still discussing animatedly. The imperial concubine sat at the head seat, the smile on her face fading somewhat. The way she looked at me became somewhat meaningful. Feng Haoshuan gripped my hand tightly and said in a low voice, "Let's go," I nodded. We got up to take our leave. When we walked out of the great hall, the sky outside had already darkened. The night breeze was cool, feeling comfortable on my face. Feng Haoshuan held my hand, walking leisurely. "What do you think about today's events?" he asked. "The imperial concubine is watching me. She is interested in me." Not a good kind of interest. He curved the corners of his mouth, scared. I shook my head. "That is good, because soon she'll be paying even more attention to you." I looked up at him. He looked down at me, his gaze carrying a hint of worry. "You stole the show today. It'll be more dangerous from now on." "I know. The imperial consort isn't Song Union. She is 100 times more ruthless than Song Union, 100 times more vicious. In my past life, if I could die at Song Union's hands, there must have been her pushing from behind. Your Highness, how about we join forces?" He raised an eyebrow. "Join forces how? You help me get revenge. I help you seize the throne." He looked at me, his gaze profound. "You've thought it through." I thought it through. That smile carrying a hint of wildness, a hint of satisfaction. "All right, then let's join forces." The night wind brushed past. Faint sounds of strings and flutes came from the distance. He gripped my hand tight. I gripped his hand tight. From this moment on, we were truly bound together. The imperial consort started making her move. Not openly, but in the shadows. First, someone at court impeached Feng Haoshuan, saying he formed factions for personal gain and harbored treasonous intentions. Then Feng Haoshuan's subordinates ran into trouble one by one. Some were reassigned, some were imprisoned, some died inexplicably. Then came rumors in the inner palace, saying the crown prince's consort was jealous, couldn't tolerate her sister, and forced her sister to kneel publicly at the imperial consort's birthday banquet. The rumors were told with vivid detail, as if someone had witnessed it firsthand. I just smiled when I heard that. Feng Haoshuan asked me, not angry. I said, "What is there to be angry about? It is not real anyway." He glanced at me, his eyes carrying a hint of approval. "You sure can keep your cool. Isn't your Highness keeping his cool too?" He curved the corners of his mouth, saying nothing. We both knew this was just the beginning. The imperial consort was testing us, watching our reactions, seeing our bottom line, seeing how we would respond. If we got anxious, we'd lose, so we didn't rush and just did what we needed to do. Feng Haoshuan went to court every day, handling official business. I stayed in the residence every day, reading books, practicing calligraphy, occasionally chatting with Shah Isla. The days passed peacefully, like a stagnant pool of water. But I knew that beneath the stagnant water, undercurrents were surging. That afternoon, someone came to visit. It was Feng Jinyan. When he came, I was sitting under the corridor sunbathing. Shah Isla ran in to announce, her face pale, "My lady, the heir of the Duke of Zhongguo's residence requests an audience." I opened my eyes, stunned for a moment. "Feng Jinyan, what is he here for?" "Let him in," I said. When Feng Jinyan walked in, his complexion looked terrible. He had lost a lot of weight, had dark circles under his eyes, stubble on his chin, and looked haggard overall. I sat there without moving and didn't ask him to sit either. He just stood in front of me, head lowered, silent for a long time. "Crown Princess, Your Highness," he finally spoke, his voice hoarse. I didn't respond. He continued, "This subject has come today to ask for a favor." I still said nothing. He raised his head and looked at me. That gaze was complicated. Regret, unwillingness, pleading, and a trace of something elusive. "Your Highness, this subject knows he has wronged you." I laughed. "Young master, isn't it a bit too late for you to say this now?" His expression shifted. This subject knows it is late, but still wants to say. What happened between this subject and union was foolish. This subject shouldn't have what? Shouldn't have slept with my sister, or shouldn't have had me fed to the dogs. He froze. You. What are you saying? I looked at him, smiling with utmost gentleness. Young master, the things from my past life, I remember them crystal clear in this life. How you conspired with Song Union to drug me, how you threw me into the mass grave, how you had dogs bite me to death. His face went deathly pale. You've gone mad. I am not mad. I've just died once. He stepped back as if he'd seen a ghost. I slowly stood up and walked toward him. He looked much older than in my past life, much more wretched too. At this time in my past life, he was riding high, holding Song Yen and flaunting it in front of me. Now he kneels before me, begging for my help. Your Highness, what exactly are you here to beg for today? He gritted his teeth and said word by word, this subject begs your Majesty to spare Union. I raised an eyebrow. Spare her? She is pregnant with this subject's child. If your Majesty hates this subject, come at me instead. There is a life in her belly, I beg your Majesty. Before he could finish, I laughed out loud, Your Highness. You know about her pregnancy. Did she tell you? He nodded. Did she tell you whose child it is? He froze. What do you mean? I looked at him, smiling meaningfully. Your Highness, have you thought about how long you two have been together? Is this child really yours? His expression changed. You don't talk nonsense. I am talking nonsense. If your Highness doesn't believe me, you can go back and ask her where she went last month, who she met. Feng Jinyan's face turned completely pale. He stood there, trembling all over, like a leaf in the wind. I looked at him, without a shred of sympathy in my heart. In my past life, when he watched me die, he didn't have a shred of sympathy either. Your Highness, let me give you some advice. Get to the bottom of things before making decisions. Otherwise, you'll be played for a fool without even knowing it. This is the most critical strategic turning point of the entire story. The protagonist uses one sentence, is this child really yours? To directly plant a nail between Feng Jianyan and Song Union that can never be removed. Notice her wording. She didn't directly say the child isn't yours, but used a question to guide him into doubting it himself. The brilliance of this technique lies in what the truth is no longer matters. What matters is that Feng Jianyan believed it. Once he starts doubting, the trust between him and Song Union completely collapses, and the protagonist only needs to sit on the sidelines and watch the show. Song Union thought she could use the pregnancy card to tie down Feng Jianyan, but she didn't know that this card had long been seen through by the protagonist in the previous life. She used this exact move to control Feng Jianyan completely, making him raise a bastard child for his entire life. This is a dimensional reduction strike. When you are still using pregnancy to compete for a man, your opponent has already laid out a plan to make you destroy each other. He staggered backward, turned around and ran out. Sierra poked her head out from the side, face full of gossip. My lady, is what you said true? That child really isn't the heir's. I smiled and didn't answer. Does it matter whether it is true or false? What matters is that Feng Jianyan believed it. As long as he believes it, there will forever be a thorn between him and Song Union. That is enough. When Feng Haoshan came back, I told him about this. After listening, he was silent for a while. How do you know that child isn't his? I don't know, but Feng Jinyan doesn't know that I don't know. He looked at me, his eyes somewhat complicated. You, what? He shook his head and reached out to ruffle my hair. Nothing. Just thinking. It is fortunate you are not my enemy. I smiled. Your Highness, I am your ally. He curved the corners of his mouth and lowered his head to plant a kiss on my forehead. More than that, he said. More than that. I wanted to ask, but he had already turned and left. I watched his retreating figure, my heartbeat skipping a beat. This man really, after Feng Jinyan went back, he indeed investigated, and the results nearly drove him crazy. Song Union did go out last month, and the person she met was none other than the Imperial Consort's nephew. That man was part of the Imperial Consort's faction, a notorious playboy. Feng Jinyan confronted Song Yunyan with the evidence, and Song Yunyan cried and shouted that she was wronged, saying someone was framing her. Feng Jinyan asked, "Then tell me, whose child is this really?" Song Yunyan couldn't answer. She couldn't answer because even she herself didn't know. During that time, she was indeed with Feng Jinyan, but also secretly met with the imperial consort's nephew a few times. She thought no one knew, thought she could deceive everyone. She never expected that I would know so clearly. Because in my previous life, she used this exact trick to keep Feng Jinyan firmly under her control. Back then, the child she gave birth to was treasured by Feng Jinyan like a precious gem, but that child wasn't his at all. It was her bastard with another man. Before I died, she told me herself, "Sister, do you know? The heir has always thought that child was his, but it is not. It is mine with someone else. He foolishly raised another man's son his whole life." When she said this, she smiled with such smugness. "In this life, I detonated this bomb early." Feng Jinyan and Song Yunyan completely fell out. Song Yunyan was confined to the manor by her mother, forbidden to go out. Feng Jinyan declared they were cutting ties completely, no more connection. The Duke of Zhongguo's manor and the Song family became enemies. Grand Tutor Song was so angry he stomped his feet, cursing Song Yunyan's mother to pieces. Song Yunyan's mother wasn't backing down either, saying it was all Grand Tutor Song's fault for not controlling his daughter back then. The Song manor was in chaos every day. No peace. When I heard this, I just smiled. This is just the beginning. What they gave me in my past life, I haven't finished repaying yet. But on the Imperial Consort side, things were getting serious too. That day when Feng Haoshuan returned from court, his expression was terrible. "What is wrong?" I asked. He said nothing, handing me a memorial. I took it and looked. My expression changed too. It was an impeachment against my father, accusing him of embezzlement, of forming factions, of plotting treason. Every charge had evidence. That evidence, true and false, mixed together, but enough to get him imprisoned. This is the Imperial Consort's doing. She is forcing your hand. I knew she was forcing me to make a move. If I save my father, I'll get dragged into this mess and expose my flaws. If I don't save my father, I am unfilial, and my reputation will be ruined. No matter what I do, she has a way to deal with me. Your Highness, what do you think I should do? Feng Haoshuan looked at me, his gaze profound. What do you want to do? I thought for a long time. Then I said, I won't save him. He raised an eyebrow. He sold me out in my past life, and in this life he still expects me to save him. Feng Haoshuan fell silent for a moment, then smiled. Good. Then let him suffer a bit. The day Grand Tutor Song was thrown in prison, Song Yunyan's mother came to the Crown Prince's residence to beg me. She knelt at the entrance, crying with snot and tears streaming down her face. Your Highness, please save the master. He is your own father. I stood inside the gate looking at her. Shah Isla whispered beside me. Your Highness, maybe. Number, she froze. Your Highness. I turned to walk back. I said no, let her keep kneeling. Shah Isla opened her mouth but didn't dare persuade me further. Song Yunyan's mother knelt for a day and a night and was finally carried back. Grand Tutor Song stayed in prison for half a month and suffered quite a bit. In the end, it was Feng Haoshuan who stepped in and got him out. If we save him now, he'll owe us a favor which will be useful later. I thought about it and felt it made sense. The day Grand Tutor Song was released from prison, he personally came to the Crown Prince's residence to express his gratitude. He had aged considerably, half his hair had turned white, his back was bent, and when he saw me, his eyes reddened as he dropped to his knees with a thud. Nian girl, father has wronged you. I looked down at him, feeling nothing inside. In my past life, when he knelt before my corpse, did he cry? I don't know, father. Get up. What is past is past. He looked up at me, his eyes full of surprise. Nian girl, you are willing to forgive father. I smiled slightly and said nothing. Forgive. In this lifetime, I will never forgive. I am just waiting for the perfect moment to send them all down there. Feng Haoshuan stood beside me, gripping my hand tightly. I looked up at him, and he was looking at me too. In that gaze there was concern. There was heartache, and there was also a trace of something deeply hidden. I smiled at him, indicating I was fine. Song Union had a miscarriage, claiming she had accidentally taken a fall. What the truth was, only she knew in her heart. She sent someone to invite me to see her, and I went with the mindset of watching a show. When she saw me, a flash of venomous resentment crossed her eyes, but she quickly suppressed it. "Sister is here," she said, her voice hoarse. I sat down by the bed, looking at her. "Sister has suffered." She tugged at the corner of her mouth, something like a smile. "Did sister come to laugh at me?" "Yes," she froze for a moment, not expecting me to be so direct. "Little sister, do you know? In my past life, I also lay in bed like this." Her expression changed. "Back then, someone drugged me, and I lay in bed unable to move at all. You stood right by my bed, looking at me." Laughing so triumphantly, her breathing became rapid. "You said, 'Sister, rest in peace.' The air said your corpse will be fed to the dogs, clean and quick, no one will find out." She trembled all over, her eyes full of terror. "You? Who are you exactly?" I smiled. "I am your sister. It is just that I've died once already." She screamed and desperately shrank back. You are a ghost." Her mother rushed in from outside, and seeing this scene, her face turned pale with fright too. Union, what is wrong with you?" Song Union pointed at me and said, "She is a ghost. She is not human. She is here to claim my life." Her mother froze for a moment, then rushed over to shield her. "Get out. Don't you dare touch my daughter." I slowly stood up, looking at her. "Madam, rest assured, I am not here to claim lives today." Her mother looked at me warily. "I am here to tell my little sister to recover well, because in the future we'll still have chances to meet." With that, I turned and left. Behind me came Song Union's screams and her mother's cries. Feng Haoshuan was waiting for me outside. He gripped my hand and asked, "Feel better now?" I thought about it and said, "Not enough yet." He nodded. "Then let's continue." I looked up at him, and he was looking at me too. In that gaze there was heartache, indulgence, and a trace of pride. "Your Highness, will you always stand on my side?" He curved his lips. "From the day you gave me the jade pendant, I've always been on your side." 3 months later, everything was over. The imperial consort was granted death for treason, and those in her faction were either killed or exiled. Feng Jinyan was stripped of his heir apparent title and demoted to commoner status. The Duke Zhengguo's manor fell overnight, and Song Union and her mother were driven out of the Song residence. Because Grand Tutor Song finally came to his senses and knew who was truly useful to him. He divorced Song Union's mother and drove Song Union out. Then, he personally came to the Crown Prince's manor begging me to return and manage the household. I didn't go back, only told him, "Father, live well. In the future there will be places where I'll need you." Grand Tutor Song left with profuse thanks. That night a heavy snow fell. Feng Haoshuan and I stood under the corridor, watching the snowflakes fill the sky. "It is over," he said. I nodded. He asked again, "Do you still hate them?" The pain of being bitten to death by dogs in my past life would never be forgotten in this life. But that hatred was no longer so intense, because those who deserved to die had already died. "Your Highness, why were you good to me when we were young?" He was silent for a moment. "Because you were good to me, just that." He looked down at me, his gaze deep. "That year in the Imperial Garden, everyone avoided me, but only you ran over to wipe the blood off me. At that moment I thought, this person, I want to remember for the rest of my life." I froze. He continued, "Later when you gave me that jade pendant, I kept it all along. I thought, when I grow up, when I have the ability, I'll go find you and tell you I want to marry you. But then Mother passed away, and I was suppressed by the Imperial consort so much I couldn't raise my head. I couldn't go find you. I was afraid of dragging you down." I looked at him, my eyes stinging a little. "Then in the last life, by the time I learned of your death, it was already too late. I opened my mouth but couldn't speak." He reached out and pulled me into his arms. "In this life, I won't let anything happen to you again." I buried my face in his chest, listening to his heartbeat. "Feng Haoshuan," I called his name. Thank you." He didn't speak, just tightened his arms. After a long while, he spoke again, Song Qingyan. He lowered his head and pressed a kiss on my forehead. Heavy snow fell, the world vast and boundless. Faint sounds of firecrackers came from the distance. Someone celebrating New Year's Eve. A new year was coming. I gripped his hand tight. He gripped my hand tight in this life. We won't be separated again. The following spring, I got pregnant. Feng Haoshuan was so happy he was like an idiot, circling around me every day, not letting me do anything. I said, "Your Highness, you are spoiling me rotten like this." He said, "It is good if you are spoiled, that way you can't run away." I didn't know whether to laugh or cry. That afternoon, Sharizla rushed in to report. "My lady, someone is requesting an audience outside." Who? Sharizla's expression was a bit strange. It is second Miss Song." I froze for a moment. "Song Union, she is still alive. Let her in." When Song Union walked in, I almost didn't recognize her. She had aged a lot, thin as a skeleton, her hair half white, her face covered in wrinkles. She was dressed in rags, like a beggar. Upon seeing me, she dropped to her knees with a thud. "Sister, please save me." I looked at her without saying a word. She knelt on the ground, trembling all over. "Sister, I know I was wrong. I wronged you before, sister. I beg you to be magnanimous and spare me this once." I slowly stood up and walked in front of her. She looked up at me, her eyes full of pleading. "Sister, little sister, do you still remember what happened in our past life?" She froze. So I repeated what I had said to her before. "Back then, you stood by my bed, looking at me, smiling so smugly. You said, 'Sister, rest in peace.' The air said your corpse will be fed to the dogs, clean and efficient. No one will ever find out." Her face turned pale. "Little sister, do you still remember?" She opened her mouth but couldn't speak. I crouched down, looking straight into her eyes. "Little sister, let me tell you. In this lifetime, I remember everything." Her whole body trembled, like a leaf in the wind. "But sister doesn't hate you anymore, because those who deserve to die are already dead." She froze. "You should go, and from now on, don't come back again." She knelt on the ground, tears streaming down. "Sister." I didn't look back. Sharizla took her out. Feng Haoshuan walked out from behind and pulled me into his arms. "Softened up." I shook my head. "Not softened up, just not worth it." He looked down at me, his eyes full of heartache. "Song Qingnian, you are my pride." I smiled. "Your Highness is also my pride." He curved his lips and lowered his head to kiss me. Outside the window, the spring light was bright, and the pomegranate tree in the courtyard was full of blossoms. Bright red, like fire, and even more like the hope of rebirth. The story has ended. Let's do a value reassessment. Core game theory logic. This is not a simple revenge story, but a strategic exercise in information gap management. The protagonist's success lies not in how ruthless she is, but in her clear understanding that the greatest value of rebirth is not changing the past, but using future information to reconstruct the current power structure. Systematic thinking. When constructing this spring-loaded narrative, I designed 3 layers of escalating pressure. The first layer is emotional oppression, betrayal by fiancé, framing by younger sister. The second layer is social oppression, public opinion attacks, family pressure. The third layer is power oppression, suppression by the imperial consort, court power struggles. The release of each layer corresponds to the protagonist's strategic elevation, from personal revenge to family power plays and finally to the reconstruction of power structures. Where did the younger sister lose? She thought she was replicating her older sister's path to success, but in reality she was copying the result rather than the logic. She saw her sister marry into a wealthy family, but didn't see the price her sister paid for it. She saw her sister's happiness, but didn't see the countless precisely calculated power plays behind it. Where did the protagonist win? She wasn't controlled by emotions, but instead transformed every setback into strategic resources. Tearing up the marriage contract wasn't impulsive. It was cutting off her retreat. Marrying the crown prince wasn't escape. It was forming an alliance. Sparing her father wasn't forgiveness. It was keeping him for future use. The most brilliant part is that line, "Does it matter if it is true or false? What matters is that Feng Jianian believed it." This is true dimensional reduction strike. When you are still hung up on the truth, the opponent has already moved on to manipulating your perception.